Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is eagerly waiting to hear from you. We're just 3 weeks and 2 days away from Election Day. How are you, guys and gals, going to vote? A new poll out this morning shows Hillary Clinton 4 points ahead of Donald Trump with just 3 weeks until Election Day. The ABC News Washington Post poll shows Clinton at 47%, with Trump at 43%, Gary Johnson at 5%, and Jill Stein at 2%. What effect did that leaked tape of Trump bragging about grabbing women have on the race? 63% of voters say no effect. But after the platoon of women this week who came forward to say Trump groped them or forcibly kissed them, 68% of you say you do think Trump has made unwanted advances. So despite a whirlwind week on the campaign trail, not much has changed for voters. Could the final presidential debate on Wednesday move the needle at all? Here with me to talk about it is House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. Leader Pelosi, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Good morning. My pleasure.
So for the past 10 days, Donald Trump has been engulfed in this controversy about this 2005 Access Hollywood tape in which he seemed to boast about sexually assaulting women. And yet, according to this morning's poll, Hillary Clinton is only 4 points ahead, and the Washington Post reports it only had a minimal impact on his overall support. Are you surprised that the tape has barely moved the needle?
Well, I think that what you hear that people say it has a minimal effect on their vote, it means they want to know about things that affect them. What's on the ballot are his name and Hillary Clinton's name. But what's also on the ballot are Medicare. Medicare, we have a Republican Congress that would remove the guarantee of Medicare. Family planning, we have a Republican Congress that will defund contraception, family planning, etc. Education, a budget of the Republicans that would cut $185 billion from education, Pell Grants, etc., and give tax breaks for the wealthiest people. So that is really what the election should be about the economy. I always say to my colleagues, show me your values, show me your budget. And if you have a budget that favors the rich, does not invest in education in a proper way, which does reduce the deficit, by the way. Nothing reduces the deficit more than education of the American people. And then they want small government except when it comes for your personal life. So they have a budget that is not a statement of our values, that we have a big contrast with, and that is what should be the subject. That does affect people. That if you're a senior or if you have a senior in your family, you do want Medicare to be a guarantee.
So speaking of values, there's obviously been a lot of talk in the last week or so about sexual assault, sexual harassment.
Yes.
And it was pointed out in a story in the New York Times today that here you have the first major party woman presidential nominee, and she's been relatively silent. And one of the reasons might be because of previous charges against Bill Clinton. Vice President Biden was asked about this and about former President Bill Clinton's conduct, and this is what Biden had to say.
Look, I can't make any excuses for Bill Clinton's conduct. And I wouldn't attempt to make any excuses for the conduct. But he paid a price for it. He paid a price. He was impeached.
Now, we should point out that Joe Biden, as a senator, and Democrats voted against impeaching
That's right.
Bill Clinton. Make the case to the skeptical voter out there who believes all of the charges from the women against Donald Trump and the charges of the women against Bill Clinton, as to why there isn't a double standard when it comes to charges against Bill Clinton versus Trump.
Well, it is a double standard. Bill Clinton is not on the ballot. He is not on the ballot. Hillary Clinton is the candidate for president that we are asking people to vote for, not because she's a woman and not because her husband was president and all the good things he did as well, but because she is the best person to be president of the United States, one of the best qualified in the history of our country. But I'm curiously watching the behavior of Donald Trump, because he's always projecting. When he knows that his temperament is not going over very well, he said, I have the temperament for the job. When he knows that his stamina is lagging, he said, I have the stamina for the job. When he knows that he has exposure in terms of women, he projects onto Bill Clinton. When he knows that, I don't know what this drug thing is, but I'm very suspicious that he's saying she should take a drug test. What's he talking about there? And when he says she's engaged in an international conspiracy, whatever he's describing it as, his own people described as his advisors, are admitting to having back-channel conversations with the Russians. So I think that every time he says something, you have to look to his vulnerability on those scores. But let's get to what really matters to the American people. What really matters, forgetting politics, forgetting Democrats and Republicans. This is the election for the President of the United States, the biggest political event in the world. The world is watching, and we're engaged in these conversations, not about policies that make a difference in people's lives so they can clearly vote in their interest, and not in a way that honors the vision of our founders about this great democracy.
Well, let's talk about issues. Hillary Clinton campaigned this week with former Vice President Al Gore in Florida, hoping to appeal to voters who care a great deal about the environment and about climate change. But we know now from a hacked email from WikiLeaks that in a private meeting with labor unions, Hillary Clinton appears to have said this in a meeting with labor unions about environmental activists. Hillary Clinton, quote, "They come to my rallies and they yell at me and, you know, all the rest of it. They say, will you promise never to take any fossil fuels out of the earth ever again? No, I won't promise that. Get a life, you know." I mean, I think this is one of the reasons why there have been enthusiasm issues with Hillary Clinton is that get a life, you know, that's kind of a harsh statement to say to environmentalists.
Well, when I was Speaker, my flagship issue was climate and energy independence. And so the fact is you cannot go to a place where you say we're never taking another fossil fuel out of the earth, although we'd like to, with renewables, get to a place like that. But there are plenty of uses for fossil fuels that have nothing to do with degrading
Right, but you don't talk that way. You don't, and even behind closed doors, I would have a tough time imagining you saying about environmentalists, get a life.
But the point is not this. The point is not should we take fossil fuels out of there. The point is this. The Republicans have been in total denial about the climate crisis that we are facing. Total denial. For decades, they have opposed any enforcement or even study of the Kyoto Agreement, to go back to the 90s, Montreal Agreement, and the rest of that. They are in denial of science and fact in relationship to many things, including the issue of climate change. So I think that if you want to talk about a contrast on these things, I think it's stunning that the Republican Party, a party that made great contributions to the environmental protection of our country, some great environmentalists, starting with Teddy Roosevelt, and now we have a Republican Party that rejects all science, fact, and data.
So that's the argument you would make to an environmentalist who comes to your office and says, I'm concerned that Hillary Clinton is saying get a life about us behind closed doors.
Well, it's you know, in other words, I am a progressive Democrat in the Congress, and I'm never good enough for the far left. And so, I understand that. But that is their role. They are advocates. And they must be relentless, persistent, and dissatisfied. That plays an important role for our country. And as leaders, we have to make decisions, hopefully, that are sustainable with the boldest common denominator. Not the least, but the boldest common denominator. We have a responsibility to future generations to protect this planet. It's a moral issue. That's why evangelicals work with us. They believe, as do I, that this is God's creation and we have a moral responsibility to preserve it. It's an economic issue to keep America number one, the new green technologies. It's a national security issue well, we've had the generals testify over and over again the impact of climate change throughout the world being a national security issue. And as I say, a health issue in terms of clean air, clean water for our children to breathe. So there's every reason to try to find common ground, especially with the party that led the way on environmentalism. So
last question, Leader Pelosi. I don't know any polling expert who thinks that the Democrats are going to be able to recapture the House, but you are more bullish, I think.
Yes, I believe that we would, if the election were today, we'd have a good chance to do so. What I have said is it depends on how big Hillary Clinton's margin is, A. B, that the concern I have is big, dark money coming in, fossil fuel money, Wall Street money, special interest money, dark, coming in a big way. But we're very proud of our chairman, Ben Ray Lujan. We have great candidates. We have a great message. We're mobilizing on the ground to own the ground. And what I've said is I think it'll be a single-digit difference. Either they'll be a little ahead by some, we'll be a little ahead by some. But it is definitely within reach.
All right, Leader Pelosi, thank you so much. We appreciate your coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Trump's latest message, don't